is 7:01, so I think we're going to get started. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I know the weather is not ideal. We didn't have school today, so it's hard to get out. So I really appreciate you coming. I'm going to go over a lot of information today. And then after I go over my spiel, I will invite, we have representatives from Lorain County Community College, Cleveland State, and Tri-C, and they will go over their CCP program at their colleges and what their requirements are. I'm Chelsea Litton. I am one of the school counselors here at Westlake High School, and then we also have Mrs. Katie Manila. She's helping me out here. So if you have any questions, we'll have a Q&A at the end, but if you can't, want to get it out of the way, you can just raise your hand as I'm going and ask questions. So the first thing we'll start with is what is College Credit Plus? So College Credit Plus, I'm going to be referring to it as CCP, is a Ohio's state dual credit program. So what this means is students can take college credits through public schools and some private colleges, and it can satisfy both their high school graduation requirements and also start working their way through college credit requirements as well. So students that are enrolled in college classes, they do have to meet requirements for the colleges. I'm going to go over that on the next slide. One big important thing to note is when you're talking about credits, it is different at the high school than it is at the college. So for example, when you take a 1 credit hour class here at the high school, for example, if you took English 11, that would be 1 college credit, and that's all year long. But at the college, they're on the semester schedule. Even though we're on the semester schedule here as well at the high school, which gets confusing, at the college, they are finished with the course at the end of the semester, and they get college credit at the end of each semester. And most college classes are 3 credits. Some are more than that. But basically, 1 high school credit will equal 3 college credits. So that's going to come into play a little bit more. I'll explain that, but that's kind of the conversion you need to keep in your head when thinking about how credits add up. So students can participate in CCP classes starting in 7th grade through 12th grade. And you can take classes in the summer, fall, and spring semesters. So when we're thinking about the summer, it's the summer prior to that school year starting. So for example, if you're looking at taking classes this summer, that would count into next year's total. That will make more sense in a minute when I get to that slide as well. And like I said, all public schools in Ohio participate in CCP and some private colleges as well. And we also offer college credit CCP classes at WHS, but students can also take it at the college or if it's offered online as well. So I'll explain the differences with that. Okay, so students do need to meet some eligibility in order to participate, and that is listed on that checklist that hopefully you got when you walked in. So by the state, the student needs to have either a 3.0 unweighted GPA, or they have to take a placement test, which could be the ACT, SAT, or the placement test at the college to qualify. Or they could have a 2.75 unweighted GPA and have earned an A or a B in a relevant class to the class that they want to take. So those are the 3 main options for how students can be eligible for CCP. It is different, so that's the state requirement, but then the colleges, each colleges might have their own separate requirements as well. So it's good to know, to talk with the counselor to know what each college's requirements are. And then there's also something called an intent to participate form. On that checklist that I handed out, that is step 1, and very important, that is due by April 1st. It's a Google form that is on our website. that you have to participate in every year that you do CCP. So if you took CCP classes last year and you plan to do them next year, you have to do that form again. All right. Okay, so the second step that's on that checklist is students need to apply, just like they were planning to apply to college if they were finishing high school and going to college after high school, they have to apply to the college to participate in CCP. So on that checklist, our classes that are here at WHS are through Tri-C, so most of the information that's on that checklist pertains to Tri-C. So there's a link that takes you directly to Tri-C's application if you go to that CCP checklist on our website. And then the student needs to fill out that intent to participate form, and then once that intent to participate form is filled out, you'll select which college you plan to participate, and we will send your transcripts there. And then again, students need to either meet that GPA requirement to be eligible or take the placement test. One thing I forgot to say on the previous slide is it does matter which course the student plans to take. For example, if a student plans to take an English course, they would need to meet the placement in the English section if they took a placement test, like the ACT, SAT, or a placement test at the college. If they plan to take a math course, they would need to meet that placement requirement in the math section of the course. So there's a lot, like I said, every college kind of has their own requirements, so it's really good for the student to meet with their counselor to kind of walk through everything that they need and make sure that they understand how to meet that eligibility. There's also, for those placement tests, ALEX is the math placement test that colleges use, and then the AccuPlacer, we're still using the AccuPlacer. That's the English placement test that a lot of colleges use. And on at least Tri-C and LCCC, there are practice tests that they can take to prep for those tests. Okay, so how can students participate? No matter, it does differ a little bit if they're taking classes here at the high school versus off campus, but no matter where they're planning to take it, the first step is they should come meet with their counselor and let them know that that is their plan, so that we can make sure we can check their eligibility and walk them through the steps of what they need to do. If they're planning to take a class at the high school, our scheduling is coming up. We're going to start scheduling in about 2 weeks here at the high school. So if they're planning to take the class here in the high school, the counselor would check to see if they have that GPA requirement. If so, we would put in a recommendation so when they do their scheduling through Power School here at the high school, they can go ahead and schedule that. And then after that, after it's on their schedule, there's nothing more that the student needs to do. I send the roster over to Tri-C and they batch register them. But if a student is planning to take classes off campus, meaning actually at the campus or online, there's an additional step that needs to be done, and it's called the course authorization form. And that's just a form that the colleges require that we fill out with the student's information and what classes they plan to take. And I'm going to go over some of the credit hour requirements that are also on that form in a minute. So basically, if your student is interested in CCP, just make sure that they start talking to their counselor so we can make sure that we guide them in the right place and how to do that. Okay, so students can take a lot of classes through CCP. There are a few restrictions though. First off, if a student is planning, sometimes students' goals are to to fulfill a graduation requirement through high school. Sometimes they want to fulfill they have a certain major in mind that they plan to study and they know exactly what they need for that major, so they want to take that. If it is a class that is to fulfill a graduation requirement, that's another reason we need to have that conversation. We need to make sure that you're signing up with the correct course that aligns to our curriculum here at the high school. Especially some of our classes here at the high school require end-of-course exams. So we need to make sure we're having those conversations so that we still will sign that student up to take that end-of-course exam so that they can get that credit towards their high school graduation. So there are restrictions on what they can take at the college. It must be a non-remedial course and non-religious. Sometimes I believe that like comparative religion is covered, I believe. So if it is talking about a variety of different religions, but if it was just like one religion, then that would not count towards CCP. It can't also be classes that are just a one-on-one instructor, like performing arts lessons. PE, that's a big one. A lot of students, and this just changed a few years ago, unfortunately, but a lot of students ask if they can fulfill their high school PE requirement with a CCP class, and unfortunately, you can't do that. Can't do study abroad, pass, fail, or courses with really high fees, but I haven't seen that often. There, on our website, there's something called Level 1 courses that each of the colleges have, and we have a list for Tri-C, LCCC, and CSU Level 1 courses. Basically, students have to take like more of the entry-level classes for CCP before they can take like a higher level class. But once they reach 15 college credits, then that opens the door for them to take a lot more options that are off of that level 1 list. Okay, so this is really important because I get into situations sometimes where students go over their credits. So students are allowed 30 credit hours through CCP, and when I say credit hours, that's college credit hours. So again, most college classes are 3 credit hours. Some of the math classes might be 4 or 5 credits. And then also what's a little confusing is sometimes we have students that take completely off campus or completely only CCP classes. But then most of our students, I would say, do a combination of high school classes and CCP classes. So this chart just gives an example of what a student's schedule might look like for a semester. So they might have English 1010, which is a CCP class, and that's 3 college credits. Psych 1010, which is 3 college credits. But then they're taking high school chemistry, high school pre-calculus, and high school AP government. Those are all 1 high school credit, which converts to 3 college credits. So that's 5 classes right there, and that would total 15 credits. So when we fill out those course authorization forms that the colleges require us to fill out, we have to make sure that we're calculating how many credits the student has remaining to sign up for any courses. And again, if a student took classes over the summer prior to the school year, we also need to include those classes as well. So if a student goes over their 30 credit hours, they are still allowed to take those classes. However, that would become self-pay at that point. CCP, for the most part, I'm going to go into that a little bit later, but is funded by the school district. So even books and the course, a lot of times is not out of your own pocket, which is really nice, but if you end up going over those 30 credit hours, then you would have to look at being the family's financial responsibility. Okay, so how do grades work? There is a rule in Ohio that if we have like an AP equivalent course in the subject area, which we have AP courses in almost all of our subject areas here at WHS, that we also have to weight CCP classes equally. So that's something that you should consider. And then also the big thing is grades will be factored into both the high school GPA and the college GPA. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit later as well, but sometimes we see where students don't do so well on college CCP classes, and then it really hurts both their high school and their college GPA, and that's even before they've left high school, you know, to step foot onto a college. They're going in to college with a not so stellar GPA. Something that a lot of students ask is, like, for example, at the high school we have pluses and minuses, but a lot of times at the colleges they don't have pluses and minuses, they just have whole letter grades, so that's something else to consider. Okay, so there's a lot of different reasons why students have the motivation to take CCP courses, but I would say one of the biggest motivators is students to get that college credit under their belt, because again, it should be free for the most part, so it's a nice way to kind of get some of that college credit done in high school before you have to pay for it in college. They should transfer. There's an Ohio transfer module that means that they should transfer from public school to public school. However, I will say that sometimes it's not always as seamless. For example, if a student has a particular major in mind, sometimes, you know, if they took CCP classes in high school that they thought were going to apply to that major, they might not, the school might want them to take their own class at their college. It might count as like an elective, but sometimes you might see that where it might not transfer. It will transfer, but maybe not how the student would like it to transfer. The best way to check if a course is going to transfer or not is to call the college advisor at the school that the student plans to go to after high school. But I know, obviously, you know, even when students are taking some of these courses in middle school, a lot of times students don't know where they're planning to go to college, so that can be kind of complicated. There are two websites that can be helpful, transfercredit.ohio.gov and Transferology. You can make an account and then you can type in, let's say for example, English 1010 at Tri-C and see what the likelihood of that transferring to CSU, and it will give you like a percentage of how likely that will be to transfer. But again, just know that, you know, for example, I always say I have a student that was planning to take business at Toledo, and he took English 1010 through LCCC. And unfortunately, when he got to Toledo, they wanted him to take a specific business English course for his major. So the English 1010 didn't necessarily transfer towards his major, but it transferred as an elective. So that's just an example of how that could work. Okay, so I've been talking about this a lot. What are the expenses to participate? So at the public colleges in Ohio, there's no cost to students or families, and that's including tuition, fees, or books, again, unless you end up going over those 30 credit hours, or unless a student fails or withdraws from the course past the deadline. That's the other big time where a student or family becomes financially responsible. And that is a conversation that we as the counselors have to have with the students and the parents to make sure that they understand that. But at the private schools there might be some costs associated, and there might be some additional things like at some schools like parking and transportation and things like that. But generally, if a student takes a class and doesn't fail and passes it at a public school, the books and tuition should be covered. So when you fill out that intent to participate form, that first step that's on that checklist, it's going to ask you which option you want to participate in. Option B is the most, it's the most common because that is saying that you want the school district to be financially responsible for the tuition and the books and fees. So that is, even though it's option B, it should be option A because it's the most common. Option A is saying that the family is going to be financially responsible and that you can also choose if you don't want those college credits to be included in your high school transcript. So you could just take classes at the college and not have them included into your high school GPA and transcript. Okay, so taking CCP classes sounds really great. And it often is really great, but there are, just some differences I want to try to point out between high school classes and college classes. So for example, testing, there might be fewer tests in CCP classes. Sometimes they might just have a final exam at the end of the semester and that's it. Where in high school you learn a chapter and then have a test at the end of the chapter and so forth. Study time might be a lot more rigorous because it's a college level course, so typically they say that 2 to 3 hours of studying is required per CCP course. Knowledge acquisition, just, it's a college level course, so you're going to be expected to do your reading outside of class and come prepared to class. A lot of times they have discussions or online discussion boards that you have to do the stuff outside of class on your own and then come prepared to participate. And then grades, sometimes in high school there's participation grades, homework grades, but you don't see that as often at the college level. And then also there are different roles at the college as far as like parents or counselors are involved. So there's actually something called FERPA. It's a Law, Family, Education, Rights, and Privacy Act, which states that the student has access to their educational records. So because of that, when a student takes a CCP class, they are considered a college level class or college level student. So even if they're in 7th grade, they own their grades and they own their work. So if a parent tries to contact the college or the counselor tries to contact the college, they're not going to speak to the counselor or the parent. They're going to want to talk to the student. There is something called a FERPA waiver that the student can sign off giving their parents access, but that's a big thing. So sometimes students end up failing CCP classes, unfortunately, and the parent and the counselor aren't aware of that until the end of the semester, until they receive their final grade. So even if you don't get that FERPA waiver in place, usually the colleges use something called Blackboard. That's kind of like their power school. So I would definitely, as a parent, recommend that you're asking your student to check their Blackboard to see their grade, maybe on a weekly basis to see where they're at with their grade. Also, there's differences between accommodations. So if a student is on a 504 or an IEP, the student at the high school, if the student were at the high school, the counselors and the teachers work together to make sure that their accommodations are put in place. At the college, it's up to the student to make an appointment at the college to share that information with them and then communicate to their professors that these are the accommodations that they need. And it's not always guaranteed that the accommodations that they have at high school will apply to the college. Every college has something called, it's different at every college, but it's called usually an accessibility office. So the student needs to make an appointment at that accessibility office, take their 504 IEP paperwork with them, and then the college will walk them through how those accommodations will work at the college level. But that's really important because sometimes students wait until it's too late and they might be struggling in a class before they do this step, and then it might be too late, and then the student's grade may suffer because they didn't have those systems in place. Okay, what does it mean to be college ready? So you have to also consider, obviously academic, can the student handle that academic rigor? Even if they meet those eligibility requirements, you still want to make sure that your student is responsible enough to be able to handle that academic load of a college level course. But also there's a social and emotional aspect that goes into that as well. There's a lot of adult conversations that happen in college level classes. So sometimes there might be a 7th grade student in a class with, especially some of our colleges, there's, adult learners in that same class. So they might be having very adult conversations. So you just want to make sure that the student is prepared for that. Also, like I said, it's going to be more rigorous than a typical high school course. So they need to have good time management and organizational skills. And then, again, just consider that the grades will factor into the high school GPA and the college GPA. And then this happens very rarely, but college credits can be calculated into financial aid after high school. That really only happens if a student's taking like a bunch load of college credits, and we will have that conversation with them. But there's also a lot of benefits of participating in CCP, like for example, the financial benefit of getting a head start on some of your college level credits. When you're applying to college, they want to see that you have what they call rigor, a rigorous course load. So taking college level classes looks good on your transcript when you're applying to college, just like it would if you're taking an AP or an honors level class. And students can get started early on understanding what the expectations are of college level classes and a college life. And again, save money, I think, is the biggest benefit. The risk of participating, like I said, students could end up failing the course, which means it affects their GPA. It also, you have to pay back the cost of the course and the books. I also want to mention that with CCP classes, there is a deadline for withdrawing from that course. So like for example, for Tri-C, it's 2 weeks after the start of the deadline. If a student withdraws after those 2 weeks, then they are also financially responsible for the tuition and the textbooks. The next thing is there's something called through the state CCP probation. So if a student ends up with their college GPA dropping below 2.0, or they withdraw from 2 or more courses in one academic term, then they can be put on CCP probation. And what this means is for the following semester, let's say that they dropped below 2.0 for their fall semester, for the spring semester, they would only be allowed to take 1 CCP class, and it cannot be in the same subject area that they failed, if they failed any courses the previous semester. And then they have to, in that one semester, raise their GPA to above a 2.0. If not, then they can be dismissed from the CCP program and no longer allowed to take any CCP classes through their high school career. Another big benefit of taking CCP classes is because they're a high school and college level student, they get to participate in all the services at both campuses. So at the high school, they can still participate in athletics, which we're going to talk about next. They can still come in and see their counselor, access any of our math and writing labs, and then same at the college. They can go to tutors at the college, get help with like writing labs or resumes or anything like that that the college offers. So and then they'll be working with their counselor here at the high school, but also working at their college with their college level advisor. Okay, so just like at the high school, when a student takes CCP classes and they're an athlete, we need to make sure that they're taking enough to be athletically eligible. So if a student is not taking any CCP classes, just the standard rule in the state of Ohio for athletic eligibility, students need to pass 5 classes during high school. It changes a little bit for CCP because each CCP class counts actually as 2 towards that 5. They still have to have the 5, but they might not have to take as many classes. For example, if they were just taking high school classes, they would at least need to have 5 classes and pass those 5 classes. But because CCP classes count as 2, if they took 2 CCP classes, that would be 4 towards athletic eligibility, and then they could take maybe 1 high school class to get that 5. Or they could take what I really recommend if they're a full-time CCP student to at least have 3 CCP classes per semester, and that would give you 6 towards your athletic eligibility. Okay, so important deadlines. So again, I can't stress enough that April 1st for that intent to participate. Again, it's a Google form and it's on our website. That needs to be done by April 1st. Of every year prior to the student taking CCP classes. So if that is not done, then the student will not be able to participate next year in CCP classes. We have students, you know, the end of the semester is Friday, so we're starting a new semester, which means new CCP classes next semester, and some students are coming to me now for the first time saying that they want to take CCP classes next semester, but they unfortunately didn't do that intent to participate form back by April 1st of last year, so they can't participate. So that's really important that that's done by April 1st. If the student is needing to rely on taking a placement test to be eligible, making sure that you check the ACT and SAT. Again, they can take the placement test through the college most times, but we just want to make sure that you're aware of checking those websites if you need to rely on those. And then if a student is planning to take classes off campus or online, there's usually a date where registration at the college opens for each semester, so making sure that you know that, because sometimes classes can get full. So, you know, usually like 2 months, 3 months before a semester starts, meeting with their counselor to start that process of registering for the class for the following semester. Here is a list of all the classes that we try to offer each year at WHS. It does depend on interest and what we, can offer. This year we are offering English 1010 and 1020, Psych 1010, Soc 1010, and Spanish 1011 and 1021. So currently this year at the high school we offer 6 CCP classes that students can take advantage of. Okay, next steps. So that's where that checklist comes into play. So again, that intent to participate form is the first step. Meet with your counselor, determine if you're eligible, apply to the college. We send your transcripts, meet with your counselor again, and then schedule your classes either to take them here at the high school or off campus at the college. This is a screenshot of our website. So if you go to Westlake High School webpage and go to the academics tab, which is the first tab on the left-hand side, it will take you to the CCP page where we have, again, I have our 3 colleges that are here tonight, information for each of them. And then I also have a link to the CCP checklist that I gave you, and then a link to that intent to participate Google form that's due by April 1st. So, and there will be a recording of this lovely presentation there, so that if you need to reference anything, you can look there or reach out to your counselor. Okay, so I have 3 lovely CCP representatives here. I have Rachel Klacha from Tri-C, Nadia Leary from LCCC, and Alicia Andrews from Cleveland State. So I'm going to ask them if they want to come up here. And I'm going to have them just explain a little bit of the eligibility and requirements of their CCP programs at their colleges. And then after that, we'll do a Q&A. Again, these are not the only colleges that students can participate through CCP with, but these are certainly our most popular 3 colleges. All right.
Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Klacha. I work at Tri-C's West Shore campus as a recruitment specialist, so I'm representing our CCP department today, talking a little bit about our requirements for students to take CCP at Tri-C. Students need to meet one of the 3 requirements that I'm going to mention to you now, so keep in mind only one of those requirements. The first option is if a student has an unweighted cumulative GPA of a 3.0 or higher. That will allow students to be eligible to complete CCP classes at Tri-C. Another option is if a student has at least a 2.75 cumulative unweighted GPA and have at least completed the 10th grade, then they are also eligible. And then if they do not meet the requirement for GPA in either of those circumstances, they do have the ability to use a state-approved test, such as the ACT, SAT, or any of our placement exams that we offer at Tri-C for both English and math. I don't have the specific ALEKS test scores requirements that for the tests that students can take at our campus, but for ACT and SAT qualifying scores, that's going to be a 21 on the ACT for the math portion of the test, and then an 18 in English or higher for the ACT, And then for the SAT and math, it would be a 520, or then a 480 in English on the SAT. Lots of numbers that I'm throwing at you. If you didn't grab one when you came in at one of the tables outside, I do have a checklist that explains this process a little bit better on the table, and then it also has these requirements listed there as well. Thank you.
Hi folks, I'm Alicia Andrews. I am the admissions counselor at Cleveland State University serving students at Westlake High School. So if you have any juniors or seniors in the family, very possible that they would have gotten an email from me, or 2 or 10, quite frankly. I will admit that I am not the most knowledgeable person in our office about College Credit Plus, because that is kind of handled in tandem with our office, but largely separate. But I did bring a little cheat sheet so that I can at least give you some fast facts and figures. Like Rachel said, if you didn't grab the sheet that we have at our table and you are interested in Cleveland State for CCP, be sure to grab that because it has the numbers so you can refer back to them later. But our minimums to get in with an unweighted GPA, you just need a 3.0. So no test scores required, just a 3.0. If students do not have that unweighted 3.0, we're looking for at least a 2.3 GPA with either a 16 on the ACT and a combined total score of 880 on the SAT. So either of those 2 tests would work. I believe there's also options for those ALEX and AccuPlacer placement tests, but I would recommend reach out to the email address on our flyer to get some more in-depth details. I don't have those numbers. And in terms of deadlines, I'm going to emphasize, we learned about that April 1st deadline. When you're thinking about college, it's important to keep deadlines in mind, stick to deadlines because they're very important. The one that is coming up closest is going to be for students who would be interested in doing CCP at Cleveland State this upcoming summer. That deadline is April 15th. For application. If students are interested in starting in the fall, so that's fall 2024, that deadline is going to be June 15th. And if students are interested in starting at Cleveland State for CCP for spring 2025, we're looking at November 1st deadline. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nadia Leary from Lorain County Community College. So our admission requirements are very, very similar to both Cleveland State and Tri-C. We're also looking for that 3.0 unweighted cumulative high school GPA. If students don't have that, we are looking for a remediation-free test score or another combination of a GPA and an A or B in a high school class. And those are on my flyers up there. It's a lot of numbers for you to remember. I, again, will echo the deadline comment. So LCCC is certainly very flexible in terms of deadlines, and we will accept your application even past our stated deadlines. However, as Mrs. Litton talked about in her presentation, when you go to register for a College Credit Plus class, you need to work with your high school and the college to do that. And so we highly recommend that you apply and be admitted and schedule your CCP courses before you leave for the summer. Each of us will start our fall registration well before school lets out. LCCC begins in March. I'm sure these guys are similar as well. So you are able to apply, be admitted, schedule your classes, and be done for the summer. If you decide in July that you want to take that class, that's great. But you need to get your sign-off from Mrs. Litton or your other counselors, and they're not here in July. So you're going to wait until August when they come back to school, and when all of our students that have waited to register have decided to register. You'll wait in line to get to see the advisor, then you'll have to get your books, and there'll be a line at the bookstore, and there'll be stress and pressure. So the earlier that you can get everything done, get those applications submitted, get your admission letter, get your registration done, get completed, and then enjoy your summer and be ready. So just my recommendation, and I think the other colleges and certainly your high school will second that. CCP has grown exponentially in the state of Ohio. I know LCCC has over 3,000 students participating at College Credit Plus. Tri-C has even more. CSU also has a good chunk, so your students would be in a great position should they choose to take those College Credit Plus classes. Thank you.
so much. You maybe just linger up here a little bit in case there's any questions for your guys' specific colleges, but at this time, any questions? Yes?
In terms of an AP course, is there a test at the end of it in order to earn CCP courses?
Good question. So that is one of the big differences between AP and CCP. And a plug, we're having our AP night tomorrow night. So that one's virtual. So if you want to join for that one, we will talk a lot about AP. But no, so for AP in May, there's the AP exam. And depending on how the student does on that AP exam can give them the college credit. For CCP, you know, there might be a final at the end of the semester, just like there would be in high school classes, but there's no, they get credit for passing the class, whatever their semester grade is, automatically gives them credit. Thank you, good question. Anything else?
Back to the credit part, is it the full 3 college course credit or just 1?
So how it depends, it's called Carnegie units. So 3 college credits equals 1 high school credit. So again, it goes on the high school transcript and the college transcript. So for example, English 1010 and English 1020 at Tri-C, each of those classes are 3 college level classes, which transfers to 1 high school credit. But then sometimes some of the math classes are 4 or 5. I don't know that number because I'm not great at math off the top of my head, but it's higher than 1 high school credit. It gives them more towards their high school credits. Good question. Yes?
The CCP program is specifically for Ohio, correct? Let's say our student got accepted to some school in Indiana, Pennsylvania, this would not transfer.
That's a very good question. So a lot of times they still do transfer, but it's maybe not as likely to transfer out of state as it is to transfer in the state of Ohio. So sometimes that might be, if a student knows that they're going out of state, sometimes maybe that might be more of a motivation to take AP classes because AP is recognized nationwide, but not to say that CCP is not. It could be. It just depends on whatever school they're planning to go to. Yes.
When is the LCCC summer deadline?
So our first round of summer classes begin in May. We will let you apply right up until that date, but honestly, I would say April 15th, if you can get everything in by then, you'll be in really great shape.
That brings up a good point too, that a lot of the colleges have different sessions. So for example, Tri-C has a 14-week session, and that actually started on Monday, January 16th for the spring semester, but then they also will have 8-week sessions or 12-week sessions. So those might have later start dates. So sometimes, you know, I work with a student that might not know exactly what they want to do by the first start date of the session of that semester, but then there might be other options. And on their websites, there are the the course catalogs that you can look at to see the descriptions of each of their classes and the credit hours, but then also their availability. It's usually posted like 2 months before the semester starts, but then you can go onto their websites and look and see, you know, a lot of times our students want to take classes online, so that's one of the first things I check is, you know, it's not guaranteed that each class is going to be offered online. So let's look at what specific course you want to take, check if it's offered online, and then check to see when the start date and end date is. And again, this is another important thing. Speaking of dates, they don't always line up with Westlake's schedule. So for example, if a student's taking a class on campus at Tri-C and they have spring break here at Westlake, that still means that they would have to go to their class if, you know, the spring break schedules don't line up. So dates are really important in following the college schedule. They're taking that class as a college student, so they need to follow the college's schedule.
And I'll say too, for summer courses especially, at LCCC our full term session is 16
Okay, well, we'll be out in the lobby if you want to come up afterwards with any specific questions, or you can always email your counselor. But again, I really appreciate you guys coming out tonight, and I hope you have a good evening. Thank you.